Qt interview questions and answers. Beginner means advanced. Introduction. Qt is a cross-platform application development framework developed by Qt Group. Qt is widely used for check desktop applications, embedded systems, GUI development, mobile applications, automotive software, IoT applications. Qt provides check cross-platform support, GUI toolkit, event-driven architecture, signals and slots, C++ integration. 1 to 20. Qt Basics. What is Qt? Qt is a cross-platform application development framework. Who develops Qt? Qt Group. Why use Qt? Cross-platform development, rich GUI support, performance, native look and feel. What programming language is commonly used with Qt? C++. What platforms support Qt? Include Q application, base class for GUI objects, base class for GUI objects. Android, iOS. What is Q Creator? Official IDE for Qt development. What is Q Widget? Base class for GUI objects. Include Q application, int main, int argc, char argv. Q application app, argc argv. Return app exec. What is Q application? Manages application control flow and settings. What is event loop in Qt? Handles events like clicks and keyboard input. What is signal in Qt? Notification emitted when event occurs. What is slot in Qt? Function responding to signals. Signal slot connection example. Connect button, signal, clicked. This, slot, handle click. Why use signals and slots? Loose coupling, event-driven communication. Base class for all Qt objects. What is mock in Qt? Meta object compiler for signals/slots support. What is Qt module? Reusable Qt library component. Qt core, Q GUI, Qt widgets, Q network. What is Qmake? Q build automation tool. What is CMake support in Q? Modern build system integration. 21 to 40. Q widgets and GUI development. What is Q widgets module? Traditional desktop GUI framework. What is Q push button? Button widget in Qt. Button example, Q push button ttar equals new Q push button, click. What is Q label? Widget displaying text or images. What is Q line edit? Single line text input widget. What is Q text edit? Multi-line text editor widget. What is layout in Qt? Organizes widgets automatically. Q VBox layout, Q HBox layout, Q grid layout, Q VBox layout example. Q VBox layout equals new Q VBox layout. What is Q main window? Main application window class. What is dialog in Qt? Secondary pop-up window. What is Q message box? Displays pop-up messages. Q message box example. Q message box information. This info done. What is event handling in Qt? Responding to user system events. Handles custom drawing. What is QPainter? Drawing API in Qt. QPainter example. QPainter painter this. What is style sheet in Qt? CSS-like UI styling system. Style sheet example. Button, set style sheet color red. What is drag and drop support? Moving data between widgets interactively. 41 to 70. Qt core, networking and multithreading. Qt string handling class. QString example. QString name equals Qt. QString versus standard string. QString integrates deeply with Q APIs. What is QList? Qt dynamic list container. What is QVector? Array-like Q container. What is QMap? Key value container in Qt. What is QFile? File handling class. QFile example. QFile file, data.txt. What is QTextStream? Text stream reading writing utility. What is QTimer? Timer event utility. QTimer example. QTimer single shot 1000, this slot update. What is Qt networking module? Provides networking APIs. What is QTCP socket? TCP client socket class. What is QTCP server? What is Q network access manager? HTTP request management class. HTTP request example. Q network request URL. What is JSON support in Qt? JSON parsing and generation utilities. What is QJSON document? JSON document representation. What is XML support in Qt? XML reading writing APIs. What is multithreading in Qt? Running tasks concurrently. What is QThread? Qt thread management class. QThread example. QThread-thread equals new QThread. Why use multithreading? Check responsiveness. Check background processing. What is thread safety? Safe concurrent access to resources. What is mutex in Qt? Synchronization primitive. What is QMutex? QMutex class. What is signal slot across threads? Thread-safe communication mechanism. What is asynchronous programming in Qt? Non-blocking operations using events signals. What is Qt concurrent? Simplified parallel programming module. What is memory management in Qt? Parent-child ownership model. 71 to 100. Advanced Qt concepts. What is parent-child ownership in Qt? Parent automatically deletes child objects. Why is QObject ownership important? Prevents memory leaks. Modern UI framework for Qt. What is QML? Declarative language for Qt UI design. Basic QML example. Text, hello Qt. Qt widgets versus Qt quick. Widgets use traditional UI. Qt quick uses QML. What is property binding in QML? Automatic UI updates when values change. What is model view architecture in Qt? Separates UI from data handling. Common model view classes? Check. Q list view. Check. Q table view. Check. Q tree view. What is Q abstract model? Base class for custom models. What is database support in Qt? SQL database integration APIs. Common database classes? QSQL database. QSQL query. QSQL database example. QSQL database DB equals QSQL database add database QSQLite. What is SQLite integration in Qt? Embedded database support. Packaging application with dependencies. What is cross-compilation? Building apps for another platform device. Common Qt interview topics. Signals and slots. Widgets. QML. Multithreading. Event loop. Common Qt problems. Memory leaks. Threading issues. UI freezes. Signal slot misconfiguration. Best practices in Qt. KU's parent-child ownership. KU avoid blocking UI thread. KU separate UI and business logic. What is MVC in Qt? Model View Controller Design Pattern. What is MVVM in Qt Quick? Model View View Model Architecture. What is Qt Resource System? Embedding files into applications. Resource file example. Q resource. What is internationalization in Qt? Multi-language application support. What is localization in Qt? Adapting app for specific regions' languages. What is performance optimization in Qt? Check. Efficient painting? Check. Threading. Minimizing UI updates. How to become strong in Qt. C. Build desktop apps. Practice signal slot design. Learn QML and threading. Biggest Qt interview concept, event-driven GUI architecture, and signal slot communication. GUI development, threading, signal slots, QML, and cross-platform design. Why is Qt popular? Powerful cross-platform GUI framework with strong C++ integration. Qt interviews focus on signals and slots, widgets and layouts, event-driven programming, QML and Qt quick, threading and concurrency, networking, database integration, cross-platform application development. Key idea. Strong Qt developers understand event-driven architecture, GUI design, signal slot communication, and scalable cross-platform application development.